Okay, so the first thing I had to do was I had to go buy some ridiculously long bolts. And I'll explain that in a minute. The bolt that was used for the alternator originally was a 6-inch bolt. And that 6-inch bolt went through the alternator and hooked into the block. Now, it did have spacers, but lo and behold, I can't even get this one in. So I went to the bolt store, and they had 5-inch bolts. And from 5-inch, they jumped to 8-inch. Well, you can figure out for yourself what I've got to do. I'm going to have to make the bolt the proper length. But in order to do that, what I have to do is I have to install the alternator, mock it up, and then figure out just how far out it needs to be. So we're going to go like this. Put this in here, run it through here, get it to here. Run that bolt as far in as it'll go with your fingers. Then we're going to take the bottom bracket, which is the adjusting bracket, and we're going to make an attempt to hook it into the adjuster like that. And here where comes the fun. We're going to take a belt. Now, I'll give you a hint for future use. Don't throw out any of your used belts. Just get a stack of them. I have a bunch, and this is how I actually figured out the proper belt to use, because I had one that was just about exactly the right size. So now in doing all of this, basically what I have to do is pull it out to where it's going to be, check it for straightness, yeah, I'm going to have to grab a little wrench, and then measure for my spacers. Now, spacers are another thing that you can never have enough of. I save everything because you can't just go online and, well, you can't run to the store. You can go online, but it takes you days to get it. So we're going to snug up the belt just a little bit. So, I don't know how well you can see that, but right about there is straight. So, there's what we have. Now, I've run this bolt in a good ways. I'll grab a wrench, run it in just a little farther. But first, I'm going to measure my back spacer, because I know that the distance from the alternator to block to here, head to here, will remain constant, because, oh, my belt isn't quite straight. Let's go back in just a little. Now, I would much rather, and I do mean much rather, do a serpentine setup. But it gets pretty expensive, especially on an engine they haven't made in years and years and years. So there we have that. Now we're pretty straight. Just like that. Where it gets wonky, if my pulleys are straight, and I am looking down the top and the bottom, I can actually laser this and get a little better if I can remember where my lasers are. Yeah, you know what? We aren't going to fiddle with that. If I have to shim it in or out a little bit, I can do that. But from right there, I'm going to measure the back, and then we're going to figure out what we need. Now, when you're measuring this, don't even attempt to measure it with a tape measure, because you'll fail. You can get it close, but the best way to do it is with a caliper. And I'm not trying to over-engineer this or anything. I just want it good. Perfection is something that isn't seen a lot when it comes to stuff like this, because you just don't know. Which is the nice thing about serpentine. You buy it, everything comes as a kit. You throw it on there. The belt's got 6 grooves in it. So, for where we are right now, two, 338. To a short 2.5. So, then we go to all our magic shims that we have a handful of, which I have long ones. Use. I have short ones. Wow, believe it or not, the one that fits between the two halves of the alternator will actually fit back here and work. Okay, so now I'll loosen it up. I'll put this in the back. Then I have to make another one for here that is exactly the same length. The reason I have to do that is because we don't want to squish the alternator ears together. We want to space that so it's in place. So I need to make another one of these. But for right this minute, we will go ahead and put the back one in. Now, another thing that we can do at this particular moment is get a wrench to run that bolt in. Figure out how much we have to cut. And my 9/16 shorty wrench is missing, which means that somebody, i.e., well, this isn't an example, this is the truth. Apparently my young cohort helper has left it probably on the lift above my head, because he was working on pulling exhaust and all off of the LTD to get the oil pan out. All right, so that bolt is in plenty far enough, I believe. I will check the threads on another one just to confirm. Oh yeah, she's in. So now I can measure it. Not quite so perfectly because I'm going to use a lock washer and all. And I know that I can take off about 1.25 inches. So I'm going to have to take 1.25 inches off. going to eliminate most of the threads. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to grab another one because I bought spares. I'm going to take 1.25 inches off. I'm going to thread it another ways up. Put a lock washer on it. Then we will do the spacer that fits. We'll make another spacer like it in a bit, but I'll go ahead and continue on with this. So I'll be back in a minute after I cut this and thread it. I really should read up on this camera more. I'm on linear now. I don't know if it makes a difference in your picture. I'll see when I edit. Okay, so basically what I've done was I cut off all the threads, which just happens to be exactly 1.25 inches-ish. I rounded off the edge with a file just a little. I'm going to grab my little die, because we aren't tapping, we're dyeing. And this is one old set of tapping dies. It is a Morse. I don't even know if Morse cutting tools is still in business or if they've been bought out. Whatever the case, I have had this for it has to be 30 years. A little further background for you guys while I put this die in its handle. I was a dealership line mechanic, flat rate, for a few years. Made a darn good living back when you could, back when the dollar was worth closer to $1 than it is today. Went from there to a service advisor, then a service manager, and went back to turning wrenches because I was tired of getting my ass kicked by every person that thought we were responsible for their car breaking down, which of course we know part of it was QC and part of it was this and part of it was that. But it wasn't my personal fault. So I did that for a bit. Worked for Chrysler Corporation for a short period of time as a certified test technician. I went around to dealers and showed them all the screw-ups that Chrysler was making and how to fix them. And some of them were quite ridiculous. I won't go into it in detail, but there were some things that just you can't make up for garbage production. So that being said, after 20 years or so in that business, I got very tired. Now, I had been racing boats during that time and having fun with that stuff, but I opted to go into the boat business. Oh, silly me. So I became a yacht broker on Lake Union outside of Seattle, actually part of Seattle. I did that. And then started turning wrenches on boats because that was interesting and fun and a new thing to learn, mechanically inclined as I am. So I did that. Then, silly me, moved to Hawaii and turned some wrenches, ran the parts department, blah, blah, blah. Did a lot of diving, an opportunity to move to Florida, so I went. And along in the short, turned wrenches on boats, became a certified technician for Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki. Did fiberglass work. My passion was always turning wrenches. Basically what I'm doing is just cutting new threads. You want to be slow and easy. As you can see, they're coming out pretty good. My die is no spring chicken. So you got to go nice and slow. I don't remember when I got this die. I don't know if it's one that originally came in the set, but what I do know is that if you go too fast, you're going to booger it all up. Sorry, I had to walk away and get a rag, and of course, I just got the dirtiest rag on the planet. That's okay. We'll continue on. So we'll put another drop of oil on her, and we'll just continue to cut. Well, it is a Morse. Always go back on gently. You want to just keep working it even after you cut the thread. It's still going to be tight. And there is an adjustment to tighten the die if you need to. But we just do a little bit. You can feel it cut, back it off. Feel it cut, back it off. And just keep right on it going. I don't use cutting oil. Probably should. Don't know. I don't know enough about machining to tell you the difference. What I do know is that my oil can is full of 15, 40, 30 weight, sometimes some ATF, sometimes a little Marvel mystery oil. And that's because when I get a gallon jug like this, after I use to fill an engine or whatever, there's always a teaspoon or whatever left in the bottom, so I pour that in my oil can. And as a general purpose lubricant, it works fine. I even put it on rocker pivots and stuff. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to grab a brand new 3/8 nut. And I'm just going to run it down that. I still have some more threads to cut. But I want to make sure that the tension is right on the die so that it'll go in the hole. If it's too loose, it'll fight its way into the hole and there won't be enough clearance. If it's too tight, it'll wobble, right? So just grab a brand new grade 8 nut. And this should now you should feel it snug with your fingers. I don't know if you can see that, but it went right on. So I've got a good fit. But if you get up here and you can wobble it too much, then you know you're too deep. If you get it started and it won't go on with your fingers, and it has to have a little bit of friction, but not a lot, then you know that you've got a good set of threads. That's critical. Much more critical than you would think. Once again, set your die gently, and it will find its threads. Now see, I have to put just a little bit of tension on that to get it to go down. It won't go on as easy as the nut. And that's okay, because we've checked. I'm sure there's a torque spec for the nut to go on there in milli-inchy pounds or some garbage like that to make sure that they're perfect. But that's the way I've always done it, and I've never had a problem. We'll just continue on a little bit. Add a little oil. Go a little farther. We come back up. And even when it's done cutting, if you do this a few times, it will ease up just a little bit. And the reason we don't want the threads so they're too tight on the nut is if you go into the hole in the head or whatever and everything gets hot, you may snap that bolt coming back out. You don't want to do that, obviously. Not to mention if it's too tight. If you do break it off and you go in there with an easy out or whatever, your magic drilling and fixing tool, it may be so tight that you break your die or break your easy out. It can just make a heck of a fight. So that's all I have about that. And we'll clean her up and see how she does. Okay, so we now have a bolt. Let's see if it all works. Well, now, of course, I have to loosen everything up, take everything apart, because I've got a little bit of a strain on the belt, which means I can't get the bolt out. So we'll do that, we'll do that. We're going to hold this up and do this all at once, I think. Maybe. If I could figure out exactly where straight was. I'll tell you, when you can't find one of your wrenches, it's very irritating. If I had my little 3-inch 9/16, this would be much, much easier. Come on, you. Good Lord. All right, let's ditch the belt. You're sitting there. There we go. Well, that's fun. Okay, we'll pull that bolt. We'll put this bolt in. Then we'll put our spacer on the back. Of course, that is over here behind me. Put the spacer in. And then we'll attempt to get that in place. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It does go in with my fingers, but I can't do everything, so. There we have it. And overdo it. You saw how easy it went in. Now, supposedly, if I put this back in that groove and I put this back in here and I slide this back up here, I want you slide for one. I gotta loosen that little bolt up. Now we'll go to the other side and eyeball it from a distance. See if she looks pretty straight. Looks pretty good. This bracket actually has to come out just a little bit just to get her squared up. So I should be able to measure that by, this is the original spacer from the back. So the difference between it and the new spacer, which is it's like about 7/16 of an inch. I'll measure it, but should bring this bracket out right to where it needs to be and straighten that all up. So there's that. I will be back and we'll continue on. Okay, so what I determined is that my spacer from the water pump housing, timing cover stuff, water pump housing, needs to be a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch there. So I'll go ahead and make those spacers. Then my alternator is all lined up. So pretty simple stuff. Now at the same time, just real quick, I'll show you why all of this comes together so well at this particular juncture. And that is because I did get new belts. Not sure which one I need. Whichever one I grab is going to be wrong. This is a 47 and this is a 49. I imagine that'll be the 47. Let's try it. No, this is altogether wrong. This is a 46.5, which means that this one's for the alternator, which means that this one is for the power steering. Wonky. These belts are wonky. Come on, get in there. Get in there. Oh, geez, there you go. And I'll just swing this up. And hopefully, look at that. And the belt's too long. Now, is this the 47? All right. You know, sometimes things just don't go according to plan. What belt is this? Well, this number doesn't match up to anything. Let's try the other one. Maybe I did have them backwards. And this one's just a hair too short because it's so much fatter. It will work if I can get it up there. Come on. You can do it. All right, I give up. Anyway, that's where that one's got to be. Like that. And then the other one goes in front of it. So, well, that was a mess.